Hi and welcome to this Blueberry Markets video update with me, 𝖢𝖥𝖣yi, Senior Market Analyst. In this video, I'm going to take you through the week ahead. We're going to take a look at some of the data coming up this week, as well as some charts to watch. So we've actually got loads of data coming out this week. In fact, I've had to fit it on two different slides because we've got that much high impact data, including four, I think, central bank announcements in terms of interest rates, especially the big one which is coming up on Wednesday, which is that federal funds rate. Expected to see the Federal Reserve hold interest rates at 5.5%, but then following that, we have the statement and the press conference. This could be the sort of point where we see the Fed's future plans in terms of that interest rate and where they're going to take things. Now, there are forecasts suggesting that there is going to be a cut in March of 2024. So there could be something within this press conference that reveals a little bit more detail about that. We do have different kinds of announcements coming up before that, though. We do have CPI data coming out, which is actually forecast to grow, especially core CPI month on month is actually forecast to come in slightly higher at 0.3%. We have data out of the UK as well, got GDP data expected to come in below previous from 0.2% to minus 0.1%. But that federal funds rate decision is going to be a big part of this, what kind of plays into this week. And we have more coming up as well. Obviously, we've got Thursday then where we get the Swiss National Bank policy rate. They're expected to hold interest rates at 1.75%. And then Thursday, we also have a Bank of England announcement, which they're expected to hold interest rates at 5.25%. We also have the European Central Bank coming up with their main refinancing rate, and that's going to be a potential hold at 4.5%. We know the ECB are looking to cut rates a little bit earlier than everyone else, so it'd be interesting to see if they come out and discuss that in the press conference as well. We then have PMIs coming up on Friday and some data out of China. So this is going to be a huge week. Now, often when we do see huge high impact news driven weeks, we tend to look more at safe haven action, as the market tends to go into that direction ahead of this type of data drops. Now, we can kind of see that's happening already. We reflected that via the strength meter here, the currency strength meter, showing us that the yen is gaining strength. So we came from those -5 areas. We're now at +4. So the yen, definitely a market that's finding that strength. Obviously, we had the Bank of Japan governor last week come out with some quite hawkish comments, and the market is almost trying to front run any kind of action there taken from the Bank of Japan. A currency that's been underperforming is the Australian dollar. The Australian dollar has been falling as well. We can see that's reflected on the strength meter here, this grey line moving to the downside. So Aussie yen definitely still on our radar from last week's week ahead analysis. Let's go take a look at some charts of interest then, because we're looking at potential dollar as well. Dollar in that reversal zone on the strength meter. If I just flick back to that a second, we can see on the strength meter there that we're still at those -6 areas. So we're starting to see a little bit of a hold here in terms of that weakness. But on the dollar index, we had a strong weekly close from this 103 support. So we could see a move back up into the 104 spot 50, or even a move up towards the 105, maybe even the 105 spot 50. Obviously, there's this kind of pause in that downward move, which could be a catalyst to see further selling pressure come from if we were to come and sort of retest within that zone just there. If I flick over to Euro US dollar, then the reason why I want to look at this is obviously because we've got two central bank announcements this week, one from the Federal Reserve, one from the ECB. Price is at a bit of support at the moment at 1.0750. This was an area which we discussed in our live streams, where the volume starts to pick up again. You'll probably see volumes sort of like this with a point of control through this area, maybe around about that 1.07 handle. So I actually do expect, if we were to kind of breach back into this area of support at the moment, then it could be an idea that euro dollar could trade down towards that 1.0665. In a news week like this, though, I would not be surprised if we saw a little bit of range-bound markets. You know, the market trying to stay very sort of neutral into these events, and then obviously finding some volatility around the time of the events. Moving on to cable then. Cable, interesting market. We're trading below 1.26 now. We kind of double topped up here at the 1.2725. We were kind of hovering around that 126, but we breached it last week. We've found it as resistance again. I like the idea of maybe cable coming towards this 125 handle. So looking to see if there's any kind of opportunity for a move down to here. If we do rally back up into 126, it could be an area of resistance. A breach back above 126, and I think we're heading a little bit higher. So 126, a big level to keep your eye on this week on cable. Finally then, like I said, Aussie yen, we featured this last week. At the start of last week, we were at this 98 level, and we were looking for potential for this market to move to the downside. Since then, we've fallen around about 400 plus pips to the downside into that 94 handle through there. So you're probably thinking, is there any more downside to this market? The strength meter is suggesting there is so, but when we look at this, we have to ask ourselves the question, where's the likely area for sellers to get involved in the market? And it'd be back up towards this sort of resistance at 96.25. We can see it's held as support and resistance in the past. We've got the dynamic resistance of the 50 moving average running through here as well. So price could kind of tick up to that area and maybe continue lower. We are finding a little bit of resistance here at this 95 spot 50 handle. So I can see that sellers have tried to come in here as well. So if we've got any kind of change of trend there, it may signal a move for buyers to come and try and or sellers to try and target this 94 handle area. We can see we had a nice rejection of this level as well. So buyers are stepping in at that 94 at the minute. But if we're going to see that sort of risk off play, the yen typically gets stronger in those conditions. So I wouldn't be surprised if we were to see further yen strength going into this week. Hopefully that all made sense. If it did, hit that subscribe button if you're new. Thanks for watching the video content, and I'll catch you in the next one.